What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about a new released documentary series that I watched on Hulu, and I've been kind of on a kick of watching documentaries lately, especially true crime affiliated documentaries. They are some of my favorite to watch, and this one I had read really great reviews about. I went into it knowing virtually nothing about the case or anything that happened, and I'm looking forward to talking about it today. And the series I'm going to be talking about is Stolen Youth Inside the Cult at Sarah Lawrence. Stolen Youth Inside the Cult at Sarah Lawrence is directed by Zachary Heinzerling. A group of bright Sarah Lawrence college students fall under the dark influence of a friend's father, Larry Ray. With unprecedented access to the survivors who lived with Ray, the series follows the cult from its origins through its still unfolding aftermath. So I have watched a lot of true crime documentaries recently, lots of documentaries about cults, a lot of things lately that kind of pertain to this subject matter, and this is hands down the best one that I have watched in a very, very long time. The way that the subject matter is presented, the structure of the episodes, the way that the interviews are conducted, there is so much passion in it. There is so much care for the actual set of events and circumstances, understanding these victims' trauma, being there for them. You can tell the director and the crew actually care about what these people have been through, and that they keep revisiting these people because from the looks of it, they just want to make sure they're okay. So to give you a brief summation without getting too deep into it, we're introduced to this group of college students at Sarah Lawrence who all have a dorm room together. You're introduced to each and every single one of them, and they kind of tell you about getting started at college, how excited they were, and there's a young girl amidst their group, and her name is Talia. And while they were all there together, Talia spent a lot of time talking about her father, and that she pretty much worshipped her dad, thought that he was the greatest person in the world, and that right now he was serving time in prison for something that he didn't do. And so they did a little bit of research into it. He was convicted of these crimes and sentenced to, I think it was like 3 or 4 years in jail. And so they're all kind of like, okay, whatever. Well, she comes to them at one point and tells them that he is getting out of jail and that he's going to come stay at their dorm room for a little while. And so he shows up, and when he shows up there, they all find him to be this really kind of kind, charismatic, compassionate person who takes a genuine interest in their life. Like each one of them is going through something where they feel like they're not pursuing what they should be, or that their life isn't necessarily going in the trajectory in which they want it to be. And so each one of them essentially starts to have sit downs with him, and he spends time helping them grow as a person. Well, what ends up happening is he gets this apartment in New York City, and all these kids start going there to live with him. And he essentially turns it into this like boot camp to build them up to be better people. Well, that ends up turning into him using these manipulation mind game tactics to get money and sex and all sorts of things out of them in the most disturbing, manipulative, abusive way I think I've ever seen. And it was an absolutely fascinating and also horrifying documentary series to just see how a person with this type of mind could convince people to admit to doing things that they've never done by the influence of people that they'd never met before in their lives. And it was just so interesting to see how if a person really starts to like chip away at you mentally and get under your skin, especially the conditions that these kids were living in. They were living in this 1-bedroom apartment in New York City, and he was bringing in all this stuff and kind of like hoarding it to the ceiling to, from what you could tell, just make them so uncomfortable and uneasy. He would deny them sleep, he would control when they could eat food, and he would badger them until they would admit to this stuff that they never actually did, just to get him to shut up. And it was just so disturbing. And I think what the director does a really great job. A lot of these documentaries, when they really focus heavily on a person who has committed some kind of abusive behavior towards another group of people, they really focus heavily on the person. And that's like every true crime documentary, especially like serial killers. When you see Dahmer or Ted Bundy or any of these people, most of the documentaries you watch are very focused on them. And it is interesting to kind of see where their psyche is and why they committed these things, what might have set that thing off in their brain that existed there to get them to commit these heinous atrocities. In this, you get a little bit of why Larry did the things that he did and kind of peek into his mind a little. But this documentary is so much more focused on the lives that he ruined. And I think that when documentaries approach these types of really traumatic events that have had horrible negative ramifications on people's lives long term, giving the victims the platform to kind of shed their story and make it essentially a warning message for other people as to like, hey, this is possible. Someone could try to do this to you. That makes for so much more of a compelling story. And you can tell that the filmmaker really cared about these people. In the third episode, there are things about the case that were still going on, and they were constantly visiting these people and having interviews with them. And you can tell it was almost more of like a consoling thing and trying to help them get out of this brainwashed state, because there were people that were so brainwashed by this guy that even after he was, convicted of things, they're still supporting him because he has brainwashed them so horribly that they just can't get out of it. And it was just absolutely mind-boggling to see, and one of the most fascinating, compelling 3-part documentary series I've ever watched. So if you have a Hulu subscription, I highly recommend checking this out. If you're into any kind of like true crime cult type of stories, you'll really enjoy this one. So have you seen Soul and Youth? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this was an incredibly fascinating, well put together documentary that if you get a chance to watch, it is 100% worth your time. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.